Hey, so a lot of people saw my last video that I made about State Farm and how they won't pay for everything that has gone on in my home, and a lot of people asked for more details, which is obviously quite reasonable. So I'm going to walk you through it. This area right over here is where my bed was, right in front of where this little tapestry thing was. Now right over here where there of course was drywall, that was a regular ceiling. I'll put video in so you can see. This is what's happening today, my loves. My ceiling over my bed, well, where my bed was, I've had to move everything, is falling in. So that's my adventure for the day. There was a little drip that started right about here. Now I thought, oh, what could it be? Somebody will come out. Take a couple of days, it'll be inconvenient, no big deal. Well, I'm going to say, past Leah, my sweet summer child, things have not gone well since then. So we didn't know what it was. We called a plumber out, obviously, first thing, to see what the heck was going on. Main part of the house, this is the kitchen area. So as I said, we called the plumber. We couldn't figure out what was going on. He came up here, very lovely fellow, looked all, in the cabinets, couldn't find out what it could be. Went outside, looked around back here on the patio. See, I'm outside now. Now notice, this will come into play later, what a step up there is to this glass door. You see, there's a step up, and it's covered out here. The reason I'm saying that is because there's no way that rain or wetness or anything could get up. I mean, it never really even gets up under this covering. Even though it's in Colorado, we're pretty well protected by the trees and stuff here. So our plumber also came out here and looked at this hose and said, no, I mean, it's not, it's an old house. It's not, everything is in the best shape, but that's not happening. So he thought, well, maybe it's a sprinkler system outside. So we determined we would get in touch with the HOA and figure that out, and we kind of landed on that, what it being. We found out that the sprinkler system for the HOA was off, so it couldn't be that, right? So what was it? So that night when we washed dishes, after it had washed, it drained, and there started to be a little leak again in the house, in my room downstairs. So we called the plumber back, and he pulled it out and examined, and turned out that there was a break in the hose. That was the source of our water. So it was leaking down from the dishwasher that you see here to my room, which is right beyond it. Now we had this beautiful floor, hardwood floor, that went all the way over here, where it's now this nasty wood. And then we had this kind of vinyl, not great. We always thought we'd do something else about that eventually, over on that part of the floor. So that was the situation it was. So when the plumber discovered the source of the leak, came down here and had pulled out, a little bit of the ceiling, and he just says, oh God, you've got black mold in here. You got to get rid of this black mold. Because it was, you see, in here. So he pulled out a little bit of the ceiling, and he said, you guys have got to get some restoration people in here ASAP. Call State Farm, who is your insurance, with whom we've been for decades, with cars and houses and whatnot, my entire family. And also call these restoration people. So we did. State Farm didn't really call back, took their time. The restoration people came right out, brought out little machines, I'd never seen them, little meters, and they metered all over here and said, yeah, you have water damage up in your ceiling. Now you can see they found water damage, and then just here, no more water damage. That's why they quit cutting there. Same thing on the floor, as you see. That's it, because my mother and I had installed this very, very beautiful, hi Peppy, laminate flooring, you see. but they detected that water had been under there, so they had to pull it out. It was terrible and it was very upsetting. And they said, don't worry about it. Your insurance will pay. This is terrible. You have black mold and it's not your fault. Your insurance will pay. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. These guys were wonderful. Meanwhile, State Farm's dilly-dallying. They look at the pictures up there where I showed you from the kitchen, and they say, oh, that looks suspicious. We need to send an inspector out. Suspicious. Whatever. Okay, so the inspector came out like 5-6 days later. They're taking their time, right? Meanwhile, we're living with this bullshit in here. The inspector comes out. She was so hateful. Basically, it was the equivalent of a woman going to the police and saying, I was assaulted, and the police person said, what were you wearing? That was her attitude. So by the time she left, my mother and I were both in tears. My mother's a 77-year-old woman. I'm a 50-year-old autistic woman, so we're crying. But we're thinking, oh, well, you know, obviously we didn't do anything wrong. What's going to happen? We're going to be reimbursed. So the woman, the mean woman, says, well, I'll let you know in a couple of days. So 10 days later, we still hadn't heard anything. We can see on our State Farm policy claim, it just says it's undecided. So my mother finally determines to call this other woman, not the inspector, but not the adjuster. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know the names of all these people. But anyway, this woman, Robin, who is, I don't know. She's the one who had been assigned to our case. So my mom calls her and says, hey, what's going on? This inspector came out and said she'll call us a couple of days later. It's been 10 days. And she said, oh, yeah, you were denied. What the actual fuck? This Diana woman, this inspector person, hadn't bothered to call us. We didn't know if they were ever going to call us. So that was last week. That was the day that I made the video, which was Wednesday. So this woman, Robin, goes on to tell my mother, this adjuster woman, Diana, declared that we should have known that that water was leaking. We should have known that we had black mold in our walls. She said it probably came from that dishwasher, which it did. And she said, in that case, you should have known it was leaking into the wall. How would we have known? How would we have known? Even if we weren't middle-aged and old women who don't know a thing about house construction, how would we have known? Would we have been obliged to, I don't know, get one of those water meter things that those restoration people had? I don't understand how we were expected to have known of that. Now, the second thing she said, it may have come in through that sliding glass door. Now, if you remember, I demonstrated how that would have just been plain impossible. So nonetheless, here we are. We have been denied by State Farm in spite of decades of on-time payments between all of the many family members who, because we've been loyal customers. It really proves to you what loyalty does, doesn't it? So I would say don't use State Farm, but you have to. It's a law. It's really a horrible trap that we're in. And I don't know. I mean, by all means, do not use State Farm. They are horrible, cruel, heartless people who lack empathy. And of course, they're in it for the money, but Jesus Christ, we're just pouring it down a hole. Why don't we just set it on fire instead? So that's what happened. Thanks. Bye.